Hi, everyone. Welcome to ELN, the e-learning network. Today's session is on an introduction to education and training in the beauty industry. We're going to talk about a couple of courses that are relevant if you are working in the beauty industry. Um, and Dee, can you move on to the next slide? Yep, just a couple of ground rules before we get started. So keep writing your questions in the chat and I'll be on hand to help answer your questions. But we will have a Q&A with our presenter, Cordelia, also known as Dee, at the end. If we can move on to the next slide. Brilliant. So in this section, where we're just going to go through the sectors and job roles that these courses apply to. Dee is going to talk about a couple of the courses that are relevant to the beauty industry. Of course, we will talk a little bit about how we assess you during COVID-19 and various stages of the lockdown. And Dee will be talking about a couple of courses and their requirements and so on. So just to give you a brief introduction of, yep, I think we've done that. Okay, thanks. So our presenter for today is Cordelia Castle. She likes to be known as Dee, and she supports the students on our ELN assessor courses. Dee has some wonderful training experience in both the workplace and college environments and has loads of different qualifications that you can see on your screen. And I'm sure we're going to have a absolutely wonderful, very knowledgeable session today with Dee. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you,
Brilliant.
Dee, who is our subject expert and also has many years of expertise in the beauty industry as well. So Dee, there you go. Over to you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sana. So as Sana said, I've been in industry for, well, I've been in industry for over 30 years. So definitely know my hairdressing. And I've been teaching for approximately 6 years. That's both at college and in private academies. So without further ado, let's look at the qualifications that are applicable. So the ones we're going to look at today are the Certificate in Assessing Vocational Achievement, the Award in Education and Training, the Certificate in Education and Training, Diploma in Education and Training, and then we've got a suite of IQA qualifications, which we'll also look at, although they're probably not quite so relevant to this if you haven't already got any of the above qualifications. So if we start off with the CAVA qualification, this is relevant for people who, it's actually really, really relevant to our industry, because as an employee in a salon, you can actually assess apprentices within the workplace. So that aids the colleges and things like that. So not only is it great for if you wish to go into teaching at college or to run an academy or work in an academy, even if you just work in a salon, it will help colleges if you can assess in the workplace. And of course, it will also help your apprentice to move on a lot quicker. So this qualification is a 9-month course, but it is self-paced, so you can complete it earlier. At the moment, we are struggling with one of the units because it's a practical unit, but the other units are fairly okay to do even during the COVID situation. There are two other variations of the CAVA qualification, which I will cover when we do the units in a moment. So this CAVA qualification is 3 units. The first unit is the theory unit, which is 8 essay-style questions. And these cover things like methods and types of assessment, equality and diversity, and other legislations, standardizations, quality assurance, and planning of assessments. It's fairly straightforward. We do offer some resources on the website and also within our learner management system. However, you do need to do your own research as well. And then what we ask you to do is to write this up directly onto our learning management system. If you do that, we then grade it for you and give you feedback from your tutor. You will be allocated a tutor, usually me for this one. So any problems with that or any queries, then you the opportunity to talk to them as well. And we are all here to help you. If I'm not here, then there will be somebody to cover me as well. So the other 2 units are practical units. The unit 2 is assessing competence in the work environment, which is basically exactly as it says. This is a practical unit and you will assess 2 learners in the workplace. As I said, at the moment, this one can be a little bit tricky because of COVID, so it's a little bit difficult, but we're doing our best to see what we can do to work around that. And what you need to do for this is you will plan, assess, and give feedback on 2 learners. And you need to do 2 assessments for these. These assessments are just learning outcomes. They don't have to be 2 whole units, so don't be scared that you've got to do 2 whole units with your learners. It's actually 2 outcomes that you're assessing. This will be demonstrated and evidenced online. So by doing that, you will upload some information for us to see the evidence of your work. The methods of assessment that we use for these, I'll go through those and also an example of what you can do as your evidence for it, just so you can see how it all slots into place. So for this unit, we have 3 mandatory methods of assessment. These are observations, products of work, and questions. So observations, you'll all know what they are because you will have been through them when you were doing your own training. And for that, for your evidence for that, we can have a checklist or something similar to that, which will confirm exactly what you went through. You will have your plan beforehand, so we can cross-reference your plan with your checklist, and that will be good evidence for us. Product of work, this one sounds complicated, but actually you could use a before and after picture that would show the work that the learner has done, and that's a really good way to evidence a product of work in our industry. It can be a picture of anything they've done. Before and afters are usually quite good because it shows us exactly what's occurred. And questions. Questions is the other mandatory one. And again, that's easy enough because that fits into your observations and also it can go in your feedback. Usually when you're doing an observation, you're questioning throughout anyway, so that's really not a difficult one to put into place. The other methods of assessment that we look at are discussions, which again, like questions, probably will be used throughout anyway. Use of others. This is a witness statement, and a really good one for this is if you have got learners who are apprentices in a different workplace, if maybe you're at college, then you can get the employer to do a reference or something like that, and that would be a witness statement for us. Learner statements, this is something that's signed by the learner. Quite often you can have maybe a little write-up from them about their assessment or about their feedback when you've given it to them. The last one is what we call RPL, which is recognised prior learning. And an example of this would be if you were doing an assessment on a student who's level 3 and they've already done their level 2. The work they've done on the level 2 will probably be applicable to be used as RPL. So that's another one that's quite easy to do. The third unit that we do is assess vocational skills, knowledge and understanding. And this again is a practical unit. However, this is within a classroom environment. You will again assess 2 learners and it works exactly the same as the first one where you upload your evidence. The methods for this, we will be looking at a skills test, which is maybe a blockhead work or a dummy hand for nails, oral and written questions, so an exam or a test maybe, assignments, projects and case studies. I had a great example of one of these with one of my learners where she did a case study for a makeup look and her learner had to design a makeup look. And so did a written case study for it. And then as a skills test, she then produced the look as well. So that's a really good way to do that one. And again, we've got RPL. Now the difference with Unit 2 and Unit 3, you can do any of the methods. So we need 3 of them used, but they can be any 3. So it's not like Unit 2 where you have to do your mandatory methods of assessment. So now, where we were saying about the other qualifications that are also related to this one, we have two other qualifications, and they are assessing within the work environment, which would be the first 2 units. So you would then do your theory and your work environment one. You wouldn't have to do the other one. And we also do variation where you have the units 1 and 3. These are not really relevant in our industry. If you're going to be assessing for city and guilds or anything like that, then you will need to be doing the whole CAVA qualification to work for them. So we can discuss it if it's something you're looking at. I'm not sure when you're looking at places like CIBTAC whether they would accept it, but I know certainly for NVQs you would definitely need to do the full CAVA qualification, which is why I've mainly concentrated on that one. Now, at the end of both of units 2 and 3, you have to do a 5-minute feedback session. This needs to be video recorded. It can be audio recorded if you have a witness present with you. And basically, this will be just a recording of you giving your feedback to your learner, which we then do an observation on. This will be the final part of your qualification. So we just then need to do our observation and give you our feedback, and that's proof that we have listened to what you've been doing and listen to the feedback that you've given. So that's worth bearing in mind when you start. Your learner doesn't have to be in the video, but we have to hear them interacting with you. So if you do have students that are under 16 and things like that, then and they can't be recorded, or if they don't want to be recorded, that doesn't matter. Just give them a quick introduction, and then as long as we hear them interacting with you, then that will be absolutely fine. Now, that's the main qualification that I think is important to start with, because it does give you an insight to all the other, into lots of ways that you can teach. However, assessing is different to delivering teaching, and the delivery of teaching has its own qualifications, which we're now going to move on to. All of these qualifications will generally need the assessing qualification as well, especially if you're going to work in a college. So the first one we're going to look at is the Award in Education and Training, known as AET, and this is a level 3 teaching qualification. And this is a very basic training course. So it consists of 4 units and is about a 6-month learning level. So this does not enable you to assess learners, as I said, but it will enable you to teach at very low level. I would say it's a good foundation for teaching, but most colleges will require you to go on to the next 2 levels. It is good if you want your own little academy. There's lots of beauty trainers now that have this one, and it works really well for them. I know that CIBTAC and CPD, I think, will accept this one as a training, so that's good. But again, you know, if you wanted to do the NVQ, you would have to do the assessing as well. So this one is mainly for people who want to get into college, and it gives you a really good basis and foundation about teaching and what it's about. People who are owners and employees of a training academy, and those who wish to start their own training establishment. So we'll have a quick look at the units for these ones. So it's 3 theory units, which are listed there: understanding roles and responsibilities, relationships in education and training, understanding and using inclusive teaching and learning approaches in education and training, and understanding assessment in education and training. So these are, as we said before with the other theory units, they're uploaded straight onto the system. You just type your little essays straight up onto the system, and then it will be marked by a tutor who you will know who they are, and feedback will be given on there. So once you've finished your theory units, you then have to do a micro teach, which is the fun part of this qualification. So the micro teach is split into 2 separate elements. The first element is where we will send you videos and you need to watch them and provide feedback. They're 15-minute sessions, and that will enable us to know that you understand what you're looking for in teaching. And as well as that, you will need to plan and deliver your own 15-minute session to a minimum of 3 students over the age of 18 years old. And this must be recorded, and then you again will upload that, and we will go through that. Some great examples of this if you look on our blogs and our YouTube channel, where Tony's actually done some discussions just about micro teaching and how to do it and things like that. So that's really useful to look at if you want to go down that road. So after that, we have the certificate in education and training, which is the next level. And this is where you're starting to look at proper training in a college. This will probably be the minimum that they will look for in a college to actually teach your students. So people who will be doing this one will be people who want to deliver college training, so not just assess, but also deliver. Training academy and owners are again people who wish to start their own training establishment. It gives you a really quite a high level qualification. If you have done the AET first, some of it can be RPL'd across for you, I believe. So it's always good to start with the AET because it gives you that foundation knowledge that you need and an idea of what you're doing, because when you move on to this one, it is a high level qualification. So the essays are a little bit more comprehensive. And you also need to do some work experience with it as well. So again, we'll look at the structure of this one, and again, there are mandatory units which are theory. So there's 5 theory units there. As you can see, the first one is the same as the AET. So like I said, that can be RPL'd across if you've already done that one. Then we've got planning to meet the needs of learners in education and training, delivering education and training, assessing learning in education and training, and using resources for education and training. So again, they're your mandatory units. There'll be little essays that you will need to upload onto the learner management system, and that will give you your feedback and your grading on that. So as well as that, we also have some other requirements, and these are optional units. So the optional units I'm not putting up here because there are quite a few of them, and they are done on a credit basis. You need 15 credits. Some of them will hold 6 credits, some of them will hold 10 credits, and you just need to go through and see the sorts of things that you want to do within the qualification. They're also at different levels, so some will be level 4 and some will be level 5. If you do anything that's level 5, there is a chance that that could then be used if you decided to go on and do your level 5 teaching qualification. So also think about your future in teaching and where you want to go when you're choosing these units, not just choosing them for what they are. An example of some of these sections are things like preparing for a mentoring role, specialist delivery techniques, teaching in a specialist area. That's always a really good one, especially in our industry, because it's quite good to focus on what you're doing exactly, because you know your area. Also carries a whole 15 credits, so you wouldn't need to do any of the other optionals. So yeah, but again, if you're interested, then let us know. We can always send you across details of the optional units. As well as your optional units, you will need to do a minimum of 30 hours recorded teaching practice, and 3 hours of this must be assessed and observed. Some of the optional units may require further evidence of teaching practice as well, so bear that in mind when you're choosing your optional units. For your 30 hours of recorded teaching practice, if you're not already employed within a teaching environment, so in a college or a training academy, it's worth contacting local colleges, because you can probably shadow, and that's really good for them and for you. That will give you loads of experience, loads of opportunities to do your 30 hours, and it also helps out the colleges. So a great environment to be in, and that's certainly what I did with mine. I shadowed at our local college. So after that, if you want to continue with your training, You can do the Diploma in Education and Training, the DET. This is a degree level qualification, so it is rather intense. When you're doing your essays, things need to be Harvard referenced specifically, and a lot more structuring and things like that. So you can, again, if you've already done your CET, you can carry some of that over towards this qualification. Now, if you do your AET, you can actually go straight into this one if you wanted to afterwards. You don't need to do CET, so you can skip that one. So again, think about your career path and where you want to go when you're choosing your qualifications to do. Don't just sort of make your way through them and think you have to do them all, because you don't. So structure them in line with what you wish to do. When I did mine, I went straight from, I did my assessing, and then I did my AET, and then I missed out the CET and went straight into the Diploma. So this one, as I said, it's a lot more comprehensive and there's a lot more work to be done. This is a 24-month course. The last one was a 12-month course, I forgot to say. So, and again, this consists of mandatory units as well as optional units. So for your and again, yep, it's the same, the people who wish to deliver at college, training academy owners, and people who wish to start their own establishment. If you do this one for college, then that will put you up there as a proper high-level tutor when you start tutoring. The mandatory units, there's 4 of them: developing, teaching, learning and assessment in education and training, teaching, learning and assessment in education and training, theories, principles and models in education and training, and wider practice in education and training. And as with the others, these will be essays that are uploaded onto the system where it will be marked by your tutor, and you will be given your feedback on those. So for the optional units on this one, you have to do 45 credits, so rather a lot more than the last one. And again, like I said, if you have done the CET, you can transfer some of the credits across, I believe. So it's worth looking, if you want to go on to do this one and you're doing the CET first, at what credits you can take across, and maybe look at doing those optional units. So the optional units, again, for this one, you've got an action research, which will give you 15 credits. And that's basically like a dissertation. It's quite an intense unit. Then you've got things like delivering employability skills, which are 6 credits. Action learning for teaching, working with individual learners and things like that. So quite a huge range of optional units there. And again, if you're interested, we can get those sent to you if you want to have a look at them before you choose what you are doing. So for your work practice for this one, you need to do a minimum of 100 hours, again, recorded teaching practice. So 8 hours of this must be assessed and observed. And again, some of the optional units may have further teaching evidence requirements, so just bear that in mind when you're looking at them. You will need to be in a teaching environment for this one because of the amount of hours that you need to do. When we say observed teaching practice being recorded, that's not necessarily recorded on a video. What it means is that you'll have somebody there who is already a teacher who will be recording and writing down an observation on you and send that in. So yeah, so again, that's quite an intense qualification. It takes about 2 years, but it will put you at the highest level of teaching if you want to go into college teaching. So then we move on to our IQA qualifications. What I will say, sorry, the other 3, we need to do your assessors with all the other ones as well, because they're not optional units within the teaching qualifications. So as I said, always good to start with the assessing ones. So the IQA is, again, something that is run alongside the other teaching qualifications. So we have a suite of 3 different levels of qualification. So these are for people who wish to quality assure at college, Therefore, training academies who want their own learners to be quality assured by them, rather than pay for somebody to come in. For those who have their own training establishment and again want to do their own quality assurance. Or you could do these if you're looking to go to work for maybe City and Guilds or VTCT and work as a quality assurance in a quality assurance role with them. So this one actually will take you into another slightly different angle to what you may do if you're teaching. And rather than doing the teaching, you could be quality assuring the teaching. Excuse me. So the three structures we have, the first one is the level 3 award in understanding the IQA and assessment process. So as it said, this is about understanding. There's no practice in this, it's just theory work, and it's about a 6-month long course. So this is for people who don't have access to learners to do their practical. It's also a good starting point to have a look at this qualification. So it may be that you want to do this one first to see if you want to take it any further before you find somewhere to work and get your theory. And it can also be combined with the other qualifications. So quite a lot of people will do the assessing qualification and this qualification, or they might do the level 5 DET and this one as well. It's a good little add-on if you want to do extra learning, which at the moment I think we've all got plenty of time to do, so worth considering. And the next one, the level we've got is level 2, which is the award in IQA of assessment process and practice. So this is just the next step up from what you've done, and this contains the theory unit as described a minute ago, plus one work-based unit. So with this one, you would need to have access to 2 assessors who are assessing 2 assignments per learner, working exactly the same as it does in the CAVA qualification. You will then be assessing these assessors. So if you've got a workplace, again, a college that you can go and shadow at college if necessary, or a local training academy or something like that. You don't have to actually be employed, you can shadow somewhere. Then you'll be able to do this qualification. You're also required to internally verify assessors' work in the workplace by sampling, planning, monitoring and advising on practice of assessors. So if you've done the first unit, then you wouldn't need to do that for this one. Obviously, you can just go straight in with the RPL for the first unit. So the following one we have is the certificate in leading the IQA of assessment processes and practice, and this is a 9-month course, and this has 2 work-based units. So this again takes you another level up, and this is about leading the IQA rather than just being an IQA assessor. So this is where you would want to be going if you want to go into the roles within the awarding bodies rather than just in the colleges. So for this one, you would have, again, access to 2 assessors who are assessing a minimum of 2 assignments per learner. You're also required to internally verify assessors' work in their workplace by sampling, monitoring and advising on practice of assessors, and also develop systems and lead on visits from outside agencies such as awarding organisations. So this is quite a comprehensive qualification, and it's good to make sure that you do know your quality assurance before you start doing this one. So so that's that one. So those are the basic qualifications that we've got on offer, and really depending on 2 things where you want to go. So you can either look at teaching within a college or assessing within the workplace, and that would be your first starting point, and from there you can plan your learning and map out the qualifications that you want. Any further advice you want on those qualifications, then please do ask, because there's a whole range of information that we can give you. This really is just a brief overview. So when you're looking for an online course, which a lot of us are doing at the moment, what are the things that you should consider? So let's have a look at some of the things to consider. First of all, you want to be looking at the the fees that your provider charges, because a lot of people will add interest on instalment plans, certification, and things like that. Our courses are completely transparent and there's no hidden charges. You will only pay the cost of the qualification. The only time there may be a slight charge is if you don't complete on time and you wish to extend the course. This is obviously at the moment, because of the situation with COVID, that it's not always the case, because we will help you where possible. But if it's because you have chosen not to carry on and you just don't let us know that, then there may be a charge. But other than that, there's no other hidden charges. You're not going to pay for your certificate or anything like that. So tutor support, now this is really important, because you'll find that a lot of people will not give you a qualified tutor that's named, so you know who to go for. When I did my AET, I did it online and I didn't speak to a tutor for my whole qualification. Working for ELN, I have found that that's not necessarily always the case. And with ELN, you will be provided with a named tutor that will assist you throughout your course. You have access to them via the learner management system or email. And I can say from my own experience that we are here at the end for you to give you all the help we can, and it's quite invaluable, I think, to have that help. I know that sometimes when I had chat to students, they really do appreciate what we can do for them. Accreditation by a well-known awarding body. So there are loads of people out there at the moment that are doing teaching qualifications and other qualifications, because obviously it's a bit of a money spinner at the moment for people. Make sure when you're signing up that the awarding body is recognised, because if it's not, then there's no point in doing it. If you want to go and work in a college or a training academy, if you want to work for BTCT or City and Guilds, you need to have a really well-known awarding body behind your qualification. So ELN use the recognised ones around the globe, and UK awarding bodies like Pearson and NOCN, I think, are our main ones, but they are completely recognised by all of the industry specialists that they need to be. You'd need to have access to your course material and not travel to a college, especially at the moment, because we all like to be working from home. So we have a management system which is available to you 24/7. You just go on and upload all your work onto there and your tutor will mark it for you. We are obviously not available 24/7. However, we will contact you as soon as we come back to you. We mark our assignments within 48 hours. Hopefully usually quicker than that, but that's our goal, is to do it within 48 hours. So you can just crack on with everything else you need to in the meantime, because you can get up on the system and do it whenever. If you want to do it in the middle of the night, then you can do that. So the other thing is, talking about the learner management system, is to make sure that it is an interactive one, easy to use and compatible with your device. Lots of devices out there that aren't compatible with things. Ours is great. We have an app, so it can be done on an app as well. So you can use it on an iPad, you can use it on a computer, and it is user-friendly and accessible on all these devices. We've had lots of great feedback about our learner management system, saying how user-friendly it is and how people find it easy. And of course, if you do have any problems, then you've got your tutor to ask and they will assist you with that anyway. So it's not like you're going to be left to your own devices. So that's it from me. I can pass back over to Sana now, and hopefully I've given you enough information on the courses that you're looking at. Okay, Sana?
Brilliant. Thank you, Dee. That was very informative. And, you know, I'm not from the beauty industry, but I was very intrigued as well. I actually learned quite a lot of things, actually. But yeah, I hope that everyone found it really informative. So I do have a couple of questions here. So Dee, I'm just going to ask you the questions, and then if you can just give the answers, and we can just go on that. Yep. Okay, brilliant. So so I have a question here. So if I just want to get into beauty teaching right now, what is the basic qualification that you recommend that I should do?
It really depends on the route you want to take. If you want to get into maybe teaching yourself in your own small academy or your own salon or something like that, then you can do the AET. And if you go with somebody like CIBTAC or I think CPD and the smaller people like that, then you will be able to use that. If you wish to get into NVQ training, then you will need to do your CAVA and your AET as well. So it really depends on where you're looking to go in the future with your career. But AET is always a great starting point because it does give you that that initial foundation on teaching. So that's
Brilliant. Thank
what I would
you,
say.
Dee. Okay, we have another question here that basically, if I want to teach training courses which are not accredited from other beauty companies, which of these qualifications would do for that?
Well, the AET is for teaching. I would say the AET is the one for most teaching. However, I would say please try and go with an accredited person. Make sure all your courses are accredited because really it's not worth doing otherwise, because a student can't then go on and work in a salon or a college or anything like that if they haven't got an accredited course. So personally, I'm very much for accredited courses, and I wouldn't teach anything that isn't already accredited by a decent awarding body. But if you do wish to do like CPD courses and things like that, then AET is absolutely fine for that, I believe.
Brilliant, thank you. And we actually have quite a lot of questions around which, sorry, that's my phone. Had to ring at the wrong minute, didn't it? Okay, so basically, we have a couple of questions, and I'm just going to summarize the gist of it. So there are a lot of people who actually ask us about certifying the people who they teach. So they may be like, some of them may be owners of salons or like a smaller training provider or salon where they're taking on apprentices and they want to certify their own students. So if you can just talk a little bit about that, which qualifications do you think that they should do, and how will they go about giving certificates to their learners?
So that's quite a broad range to discuss. But basically, if we look at it from you want to earn your own training academy point of view, you would need to be level 5 qualified to do that. And then you would also need your assessors, obviously. And the certification would be done through the awarding body. So that would be City and Guilds or VTCT. And yeah, they would definitely look at having the level 5. I would also suggest that you do an IQA qualification, but it depends how big you're going to grow, really, because if you what you have to bear in mind is that if you're assessing students, you can't teach and assess. You have to do one or the other. So if you're going to teach your students, you'll need somebody else to assess them. If you only have an assessment qualification, then you'll need somebody else to do the actual delivery of the teaching. So as I said, it's quite a complicated system, depending on what you want to do and how many people you'll be working with and things like that. So it's probably worth having a conversation separately where you can discuss an actual situation that's real, and then it makes a bit more sense and we can talk about it properly. But basically, if you're looking at starting your own type of academy or training centre, then you would have to have at least, I would say, level 5 and assessors to do that.
Fair enough, Dee, thank you. That is a bit of a complicated question, but it's one that actually comes up quite a lot. And I think
like I
it's,
said, that's more of
yeah,
I think that's a personal discussion of, if anybody
yeah,
wants to really discuss that, then to give me a ring and we can, or give me
yeah,
a
absolutely. And we
ring and
can,
talk through it, because it
yeah, yeah.
depends on how big the centre is and what sort of things you're teaching and things like that.
Exactly, and the kind of course, exactly the courses that they're going to teach and how many learners
Absolutely.
they'll have on,
Yeah.
and obviously, like you said, if they're assessing, they can't do the quality assurance and so on, so
Yeah.
they would need some kind
The
of
other good
teacher
thing is,
assessment
the other
style.
thing I would say is to look
Yeah,
at the person that they're using as the awarding body and see what their recommendations are, because they will say exactly what they require from their tutors and their assessors.
That's a good idea as well, actually. So
Like I
probably,
say,
yeah.
if you look at NVQs, they will tell you that you need your CAVA. But if you look at people like SIBTAC, I think you just need to be AET qualified. So that's what I mean. It really depends on what route you're taking, whether it's hair, beauty, and what sort of courses you're planning on giving. If you're giving just CPD courses, then you don't really need to certificate them with an awarding body.
Okay.
So then you could do an AET. But if you're looking at certificating, then you will need a CAVA and a teaching qualification as well.
Fair enough. I think that's really informative, actually. So that would be valuable to a lot of people listening. Thank you for that. Okay. So somebody here wants to know, like, what are the factors they should consider if they're thinking about choosing a qualification between doing the AET or the CET? What are the benefits, or which one they should choose?
I think if you're serious about going into training, I would definitely go for the CET, because that is the one that colleges are going to require mostly. AET is very much a foundation qualification. So like I say, for CPD courses and things like that, it's great. But if you want to get into a college environment, then you really need to have at least a CET. However, if you've not done online learning or you've not done much about teaching, AET is a great start because it's a great foundation. It gives you a little insight into how you need to work, what your essays need to look like, how you need to reference your things. And also with your micro-teach, it gives you that bit of confidence in teaching. So it is a good starting point, but if you're really serious about going into teaching, then you would need a CET at minimum, I would say.
Thank you. Just related to that, actually, we have a couple of questions about, obviously, finding work is a bit difficult at this time, and it has been generally, I think, this year. And we have a couple of questions regarding completing evidence for, so there's a couple of them aimed at the assessor qualification, but also the teaching qualification. And it's generally just if they're working freelance, or what are the requirements? Like, do they have to be working full time in a college, or what kind of evidence, like what role do they need to be in that we can accept the evidence for assessment and teaching?
So again, that varies on your actual qualification that you're doing. But most of it, like I say, if you're doing the teaching ones, then really for the CET and the DET, the level 4 and the level 5, then generally you would need to be in a college environment, I would say, because that's your best opportunity to get the students and the support that you will need with that. So you can shadow at a college and things like that. If you're teaching by yourself, then you can use people that you've got. You can use friends, to be honest. If you're doing things like the micro-teach, then you can have friends. They don't need to be other people for the people you're teaching for micro-teach. When I did my micro-teach, I did it on plaiting, and I just got friends in and I taught them how to do plaiting and things like that. And I think that's the other thing to look at is don't overthink it. When you're thinking about your assessments and things like that and your micro teaches, don't overthink it. You just need to do it on something basic. And that's when I'm doing my assessing qualifications, I quite often say to people, just think about something that you can do that's quite basic, because the more complicated the assessment you're doing, the more complicated the evidence, and then that's going to make it difficult for us to go through as well. So it complicates the whole thing. Whereas if you pick something like, for instance, maybe a file and polish, that is much easier to do rather than doing a file and polish and a filing and a gel polish and a removal and a this and a that. Just keep it simple. Don't do a whole unit, just do a couple of outcomes. You can do your health and safety. Health and safety is great at the moment for doing as a classroom one, so you can use that for you can do that on Zoom and things like that. It doesn't have to be in person. So when you're looking at the qualifications, look at how you can adapt them. So with the CAVA course, Unit 3 is fairly easy to do at the moment, because you can set tests, you can mark portfolios, you can do things on Zoom and things like that. Micro teaches for your AET can be done on Zoom. I don't actually teach the CET and the DET, so I'm not 100% sure what they need, but I'm fairly confident that will have to be proper in college training or in school training. rather than just assessing with friends or things like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. That was very comprehensive, and I think covers a lot of the questions. And just to confirm, you're right. So for the AAT, we can have family and friends over, a minimum of 3 people. They don't need to be registered students. And, like exactly perfectly, a very simple topic, 15-minute session. And we're looking at the basics really. But for the level 4 and the 5 CET and the DET, it does need to be a recognized formal qualification in a proper educational setting. So that would most likely be either a proper established training center or a college, I think, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, so absolutely perfectly makes sense. And that kind of ties in with a question that we have of whether we accept online training currently on
Yeah,
Zoom or Skype.
absolutely. Yeah, we do. Obviously, it depends on the qualification and the unit you're doing. You wouldn't be able to do that for the higher level qualifications. But as I said, certainly for unit 3 of the CAVA and the equivalent qualification that's just the unit 3 and the unit 1, we can definitely accept things on Zoom for that. Not so easy with the unit 2, which is the workplace. We wouldn't be able to accept that, unfortunately. That really needs to be a proper observation. So that's where the sticking point comes. But there are certainly lots of things that you can be getting on with if you wanted to start the qualification now. And then when things hopefully return to a bit more normality and you'll be able to work again, which will hopefully be December, you can then do the workplace assessments then. But it's various bits can be accepted, and obviously all your theory is done online anyway. So it's definitely worth starting now.
Absolutely, thank you. And definitely, yeah. So some of these are 6 month, 9 month, even like 1 or 2 year qualifications. So it's definitely worth starting and getting the theory out of the way and any bits and pieces that you can do. And yeah, with regards to online, can you just, Adi, clarify with regards to the teaching qualifications as well, about online teaching? Do you know?
I don't actually know, sorry, with those
Oh,
qualifications. I have
okay.
to check that and come back because I don't teach the
All
high
right.
level.
Okay. So no worries. So you've already mentioned that we can accept the AAT microteach online, so that's fine. And I think recently it's because the guidance is changing constantly from off call. So the idea is to keep an eye out on our COVID-19 assessment strategy, which is on our blog, and we link it in the emails, and it's also available on. There's a video on it on our YouTube, and there's an article on it in our blog. So it's always best to check the website for the most updated version of what the awarding bodies are
Yeah,
allowing. But currently, at the moment, the guidance is saying that the CET, we can accept the 3 observations via Zoom conducted online before the level 5 DET, because it is a very higher level qualification, which ultimately enables you to pretty much teach anywhere in any setting. We're currently allowing 2 of the 8 observations to be online, but the rest of the 6 do need to be
right, okay.
actual classroom observations. But yeah, so I mean, like you said, there's a huge amount of theory assignments and other bits and pieces to get out of the way, and also obviously you can do the 2 online observations, and hopefully, like you said again, things will go back to normal in December. We've been through a period of lockdown, and it did kind of ease off for a little bit, and we did kind of get back into work, and
Absolutely. During
yeah,
the first bout of lockdown, we had lots of people that started the qualification and had to stop when they got to a certain point, but they have been able to then pick that up, and I've had quite a few people that have now completed because they were just waiting for
absolutely.
that moment when they could get back to work, and now they've done that. So you get what you can out the way is what I've been saying to people. Do what you can, and then as soon as you're able to do the other bits, you're ready to go, aren't you? So
Absolutely, absolutely, brilliant. Okay, and we have a final question, just about the time scales, because it does say on our website that it's self-paced. So can you give people an idea of if they can complete quicker than the 6 months or the 1 year or whatever deadline it is that we mentioned?
absolutely, it's very much down to you. Again, not just down to you at the moment, also down to lockdowns and things like that, that is hindering it somewhat. But because you're able to get to the system whenever you want to, a lot of people can get through it a lot quicker than it says, because they'll just go on and be working whenever they can, especially the ones where you don't need to do any workplace. So your AET is really easy to get through rather quickly, I think, and you can get through certainly the first unit of the CAVA fairly quickly. It's entirely up to you how quick you want to do that, and how much effort you put into it, really. The other ones, again, anything that's going to need the teaching practice is going to take longer, because there's unfortunately out of our hands. But under normal circumstances, again, if you're in the environment and you're working and you've got learners to hand, then there's no reason why you can't get through it a lot quicker than it says. It's all about, you know, how quick you want to work and how much effort you want to put into it, really.
Absolutely. And in fact, we've had quite a steady rate of completions throughout this year, despite everything that's been going on. So I mean, that's really a positive outcome. So hopefully, you know, once people get stuck in, they'd be able to achieve.
Yeah, I think because the system is so easy to use as well, people do find it, you know, quite straightforward to go on and do it, and it makes it a much better learning experience. The feedback that I get back from my learners is that it's a really positive thing, so they're quite happy to go on and do what they need to do, really.
Absolutely. Actually, I don't know if you know, but Tony actually told me that we had an AET completion on the learning management system, and it was literally, the lady signed up and she completed within a week.
Wow.
So yeah,
Excellent.
so she did really well. But I mean, it goes to show that it's possible, you know. So if you have the time at the moment, then you can just put the effort in.
It's all,
Brilliant.
a lot of it is just about finding learners. If you've got learners, if you're already working in a college, I've got quite a few people that already work in a college environment, and if they've got learners to hand, then there's no reason why they can't get through all of it fairly quickly. And that's the other thing at the moment, actually. Colleges and that's still open. So if you're working in a hairdressing college, or if you shadow at a hairdressing college, they're still open at the moment, so you can actually do what you do. So
yeah, keeping in mind SOPs, stay safe, everyone.
Absolutely, definitely, 100%.
Yeah. So okay, brilliant. So I think we're almost just up for time, and I'm also out of questions currently. In case you know, there are any questions that I haven't been able to get through to, or I've not seen, I'm really sorry. And if you feel that we have discussed a question, but you feel like there's more detail you need or you didn't understand, then you can always get in touch with us, obviously, on info@eln.io, or on our phone number 02033717309. And we also have a live website chat option. So during working hours on regular working days, our customer services are also on hand to help you. And obviously, if it's anything more technical or something very specific to the beauty industry, then you can always contact customer services and ask to arrange a call with Dee herself or any other one of our tutors, depending on the qualification that you're interested in. And we can definitely set up a call for you directly, one-to-one with the tutor, so that you can discuss your questions. So, I mean, that's it for now. Unless, Dee, is there anything else that you would like to add at the end?
No, I think the only other thing that I get from my students when they first sign up is that they panic about what they're doing for their assessments and stuff. And what I would say is that we're not assessing you on your ability to do your job. We're assessing you on your teaching. And I get lots of people who send in their first couple of assignments, and it's all about what they're doing, and that's not what we need to know. So I think that's just, you know, don't panic about us knowing what you do as such. We need to look at your actual teaching, not your industry. So people, like I say, they write their assignments very, very specifically about what they're doing, and that's not necessarily what we want. So make sure that you have a proper chat before you start, so you know exactly what our requirements are, really.
Thank you, Dee. That's actually a very good tip. Yeah, so that's very important to clarify. Thank you. And generally, thank you for the wonderful session. Very, very informative. And I hope that everyone's going to find it really helpful in helping them to make a decision about, way to go forward for their career. Thank you for answering all the questions so comprehensively. And thank you for giving your time today.
That's fine. Thank you very much for listening.
Brilliant. Okay, and just before we actually sign off and finish the session, I just want to remind all our viewers that you will get a recording of the session in case you've missed anything or you want to go over it again. And in the same email, you will get a discount code for 25% off. That code is valid for any of our qualifications across the entire website. So that would include all of the assessor, the IQA, the level 3, 4, and 5 AT, CT, and DET. So all of the qualifications that Dee has covered in her presentation today will fall under the discount code, but it will be timed. I think it's 24 to 48 hours that it's valid for. So definitely keep an eye out for the email. Make sure that you check it in time. Send us your questions and make sure that you avail the offer if you are serious about buying the courses. And thank you for being here. Thank you for sending in your questions and thank you for your interaction. And that's it from us. So thank you for watching. Stay safe and best of luck with whatever courses you choose.
Thanks, Anna. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.